What's good, my people? Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's daily NBA betting podcast. We're in the workshop Tuesday NBA slate, play-in slate. Got a couple games ready to go. We got some wagers for you, and I got a couple of the fellas with me. JD, Joe Dellera, you know the man, and K1, Kyle Murray in the building. You know how we do. We get the play, we get the cap, we get you guys out of here recording live from our Tommy John home studios. We made it, boys. This is the playoffs. It's not, but it is. You understand what I'm saying? And we're going to treat it as such. 2 ball games. Orlando hosting the Hawks, -5 money line, -200 in favor of the Magic, total 216.5. Then the Memphis Grizzlies are going to San Francisco to take on the Warriors. Warriors the favorite here, -7 shaded, juiced. Actually, -114, -310 on the money line. Total sits at 229. We have a bunch of plays. Anytime Joe Dellera is in the mix, plays start to get thrown around. Angles are found, and that's exactly what we have here. JD, Joe Dellera, give me your best bets for the play-in Tuesday.
Dude, what aren't my best bets tonight? I got too many, I think, you know. Hey, but look, we got a couple for every game. So for the Magic and the Hawks, I'm looking at a little same game parlay I cooked up with Turvey. Magic money line, Franz 20 plus points, and Paolo 20 plus points. It's about -110. And then for Warriors Grizzlies, I like Steph Curry over 10.5 rebounds plus assists. Ja Morant over 33.5 points plus assists. And I like some Zach Edey rebound overs as well.
K1.
Yeah, I'm also looking at Edey for one of my top plays in the night. 10.5 over on FanDuel, 11.5 over on DraftKings. I like them both. Obviously, I bet the lower number there on a FanDuel. And then I also like Franz Wagner over 36.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
I'm going to fade the Memphis Grizzlies, as I've been talking about for quite some time. I'm going to lay the 7 with the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to ask our listeners to show some patience. Call it square, call it whatever you want. I like this spot. It cashes. I'm going to go Memphis Grizzlies on the money line, parlayed with the Knicks money line in game 1 versus the Pistons, -130 in the market as we record this on a Monday, April 14th. So we'll cash this next week. It'll be there for you in the account, waiting for you to roll into the playoffs the next week. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with Orlando, JD, just because we're going to talk a bunch about the Warriors and the Timberwolves. Magic have had a really interesting season. Ups and downs. KCP didn't play as well as we thought. Jalen Suggs probably was playing better than we thought. He ends up going down. Paolo goes down. Franz goes down. Paolo comes back. Franz comes back. They close the year and are playing a lot better. Talk to me about this lay and why you're backing the 2 superstars for Orlando to score 20 and you think they win.
Yeah, so I'll start off with the props, right? Both of them have cleared this line with ease this season against the Atlanta Hawks. Franz, the fewest amount of points he's got is 22. Paolo's got 30 or more in all 3 games he's played against the Hawks as well. So that was a little bit easier. I think they're both going to see a ton of minutes in this game. It's obviously critically important to win. This isn't a one and done based on where they are in the bracket. However, you don't want to have to play an extra game before then having to maybe go play Cleveland. It's just a brutal situation, but I think that Orlando is a little bit of a better team at this point. They dealt with a number of different injuries, but they're pretty healthy now. You obviously wish they had Jalen Suggs, but at the end of the day, this is an Orlando Magic team that had some playoff expectations compared to this Atlanta Hawks team, who I know they had some commentary about, like how good are we, whatever, but they were not necessarily a great basketball team over the course of the entire season, and they've dealt with a number of injuries as well. So I like Orlando here. I think they're the better team. I think they're going to have at least 2 of the top 3 players on the court. I think that Trae Young is still probably in that top 1 or 2 discussion here. But either way, I like what Orlando has, and I think that we're going to see a lot of minutes between Franz and Paolo. And I think it's going to be tough. Dyson Daniels, as good as he is, not necessarily a great on-ball defender, and that's kind of what you need when you're playing Franz and Paolo, 2 guys that like to get into the paint, will play a physical brand of basketball, and I think they're going to really bring the intensity today against this Atlanta Hawks team. So I like the Magic on the money line and then the 2020.
K1, what do you think? We talked a little bit about the Magic the other day. I'm a big Magic guy. In the long term, I hope they can add some scoring, and I really think they could take this whole thing to another level, especially in the East where it's extremely top heavy, and they could just make a lot of noise and won't have to deal with stuff like the play-in. What do you feel about this game and JD's cap on that leg?
Yeah, pretty much, in line with Joe's takes there. I think Orlando's a better team. I like, both of those superstar players for the Magic to go over these numbers. Have them both projected for over 28, almost 29 points for Wagner, over 30 points for Paolo. And, like Joe mentioned, with the playoff atmosphere, although it isn't, a loser go home or winner go home situation, they're still going to be, expecting big time minutes for these guys. I mean, these are players who are playing 37, 38 minutes in close games in the regular season. So obviously they're going to be, looking to have their foot on the gas at all times to win this one and avoid that, that winner go home scenario play-in game in a couple days. So I got both these guys projected for 38 and a half minutes tonight, and I really wouldn't be surprised if they touch 40. So I think that's one common theme you're going to see across these play-in and playoff prop numbers. So, you look at Franz Wagner's numbers, they're pretty elevated. This 36 and a half prop line across the last few weeks of the regular season. But again, we're also expecting more minutes. Also a fantastic matchup here as well against the Hawks, who are a very pace-up spot, third in pace over the course of the season, while Orlando's bottom 3. So it's going to be a pace-up spot. Great matchup here for him. Like I mentioned, I am projected for like 29 points, right around 5.5 assists, and just under 7 rebounds. So 41 PRA is where I have this number for Wagner. So I like the 36 and a half over quite a bit here.
One thing Orlando has been poor at this season is just turning the ball over. They've been turning the ball over at an extremely high rate all year long. Have lacked that real ball handler outside of Franz that is there to focus, create, and just make sure the offense stays on track. Also, let me ask you this, JD. Who's going to stick Trae Young? Who is going to be that guy? Because he's had some big games against Orlando. 4 games this year, they're 2-2. Trae only played 3. And one of the games, he had 38. In the 3 games, this up really quick. Trae Young, 19, 28 points, and 38 points in those 3 matchups. That might be the only thing that worries me. Orlando comes out, starts to turn the ball over. No one to really check Trae if he starts to roll. And we know Dyson Daniels can maybe limit one of those big dogs for Orlando. That would be the only worry, just to play a little devil's advocate. What do you think about that, JD? Because we know Trae Young, he lives for moments like this, and he's had success against a Magic team that does turn the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, Trae has definitely had some success. My thing is that Trae on the season, his scoring has not really correlated with them winning. He's basically averaging a little bit under 1 point more in wins versus losses. So Trae just getting out, getting his doesn't necessarily mean that team's cooking. I really feel like the thing for Trae is when the assists are going, that's a little bit more of what gets this Atlanta offense into a flow. They have a number of different players that really can't create that well for themselves. So I think that, they need Trae to not necessarily be the scorer. They need him to, obviously contribute as a scoring threat, but also facilitate and help everybody else get into the flow of the offense. So this is a team too, in Orlando that plays at a slower pace. They play a little bit more of a slog. And I think that they're going to need a little bit more fluid ball movement and fluidity on the offensive side, beyond Trae just kind of getting his and maybe putting up 30.
K1, any additional thoughts there before we move on and start talking the game that has it all in a lot of different aspects in Golden State and Memphis?
Yeah, I think we left the people waiting alone on a long enough time on the big game, what everyone came to look for. So Memphis and Warriors, let's go to that one.
Yeah, let's do it. Memphis Grizzlies go to Golden State. Big underdogs, 7+ points. I tweeted this right before we got on. Joe Dellera, the Memphis Grizzlies have one win against Western Conference playoff teams in the top 6 seed this season. They're 1-8 straight up. Only game they won was at the Timberwolves, 127-125. On January 11th, they're 0-2 straight up on the road this year versus Golden State. If you go through the metrics and just look at their home and away splits, they're just a different team. They're a lot poorer on the road when they leave the grindhouse in Memphis. It's been like that for a few years, so that's not surprising. But especially when we start talking about the upper echelon squads here in the NBA, talk to me about this game, because we had a little bit of a little argument before we hopped on. Obviously, I'm on the Warriors here. I like them big. I don't mind laying the number. But talk to me about this matchup, the Ja Morant over, the Edey over, the Curry over, and then we'll break it all down, and I'll come to you next, K1.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with this game is I think that the line is just a little bit inflated. I think that this is a spot where the Grizzlies, you're going to get a little bit of value here on Memphis. Memphis is obviously going through a coaching change with the firing of Taylor Jenkins a couple weeks ago, and it hasn't been obviously at a great time, and Memphis has slipped in the Western Conference standings. However, I do think that the slippage, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Western Conference is so tight. So if you lose 3 games in a row, you went from being like the 3 seed all the way down to the 8 seed in the play-in. So I think it's a little bit overstated to a degree as well. Also, Golden State just had a war with the Los Angeles Clippers, and they lost that. They played an overtime game. Jimmy Butler got hurt a little bit. Kawhi Leonard kind of hit knees with Jimmy Butler. Butler didn't really look great after that either. Don't know how that swells up. Don't know how he responds to that injury. Curry was also on the injury report for that game. Wound up playing, obviously put up a great performance. But again, you never know if you tweak that or anything else. Whereas Memphis, they knew they were going to be this 8 seed. They rested. This is a rested team going into this matchup against the Golden State Warriors team that I think really kind of put out all their chips on the table, all their cards on the table, because they were like, look, we need these days off. We're a little bit of an older team. We don't want to play in the play-in. And then they had to play overtime, and they lost to the Clippers. So I don't like the rest spot for Golden State. And I think that 7.5 points is too many. We're looking at more than 2 possessions here for the Golden State or for the Grizzlies here with a rest advantage. So that's why I'm leaning towards Memphis here. And from a personnel perspective, I like this Ja Morant play, and I'll leave the Edey stuff for Kyle because I know Kyle's also on Edey. But the big thing has been since Taylor Jenkins was fired, there was a clear paradigm shift and a clear shift in what Memphis wanted to do in their offensive strategy. They said, number one, we drafted Edey in the top 10. Edey's going to play top 10 minutes. And so that's a thing now, right? But besides that, they said, we care about Ja Morant. Ja Morant is the clear head of the snake for this team, and we want him to be used in a completely different way than he's been used previously. This season, before Taylor Jenkins was fired, Memphis ran the fewest ball screens and high pick and rolls out of any team in the NBA since 2013. That's insane when you have Ja Morant. Ja Morant lives and breathes pick and roll. And that started to come back for him since Taylor Jenkins was shipped out. And in the games without, or in the games since this firing, right, he's been putting up some monster numbers. So I like Morant here. This 33.5 points plus assist prop, he's crushed against Golden State as well. He's at this in 8 of 9 games where he's played at least 30 minutes against the Warriors. So there was one game he played 17 back in December. That was because it was an absolute blowout where the Grizzlies just dominated from front to back. So his last game was on April 1st. After that firing, 36 points, 6 assists. I like Morant in this spot against the Warriors, who might have some tired legs.
I mean, that's a very good handicap. I just disagree with a lot of the things you said. You know what I'm saying? I do agree that the Morant specifically is difficult to fade because, first of all, he's found either the green light from Isalo to just fire whenever he wants. And on top of that, they're playing the 5 seconds or less type of offense. And he's found this jump shot that has been on fire the last 10 games. He's been hitting
Dude,
a lot
he's
of
just
shots from
chucking
deep.
up. He's chucking up bombs, man. That's what he's doing.
and they're falling more than they have in his entire life. So it seems, right?
Yeah.
Bombs, more like grenades, but they're going in, whatever they are.
Somebody put a Mike Breen bang in here.
So it's tough to argue Ja Morant. I think the Warrior stuff is where I disagree with you.
Yeah, and I do like some Curry stuff here as well. So, like, I like Curry over 10.5 RA. It's not necessarily a line he's hitting this season, but part of why I like this is when he's played 30 minutes this season, he's hit it in 54% of games. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play 40 minutes tonight. But the big thing is that for Curry, there's always a shift in his rebounding profile in the playoffs. So he averages over the last couple of seasons, he's really only at about like 4-ish rebounds per game. In the playoffs, it jumps to 5.6 over his last 4 postseasons. A big thing about it is that Kerr kind of employs this strategy where Curry gets a lot of the defensive boards because it helps pick up the offensive pace. It helps them kickstart the offense by putting the ball in the hands of the best player on the team. It lets Curry do some creative things, create something out of nothing in the fast break and in transition. So I like that. And then I also like adding the assists here. Dropped 52 points last time out against Memphis. I think they're going to try to do something a little different. So I figure maybe he'll dish a little bit more. He still had 8 assists in that game as well. So I like the combo prop here of the 10.5 rebounds plus assists with the thought he's going to play more minutes. And I think that he's going to get a little bit more opportunities as a playmaker, grabbing some boards on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and even with Jimmy Butler in the fold, last 15 games, Curry's usage is still pushing 30%. It's right below 30%. And Jimmy Butler the third is only at 20.5%. Which is interesting. I should pull like the fourth quarter numbers on that because it seems like Jimmy has the ball way more than that, especially when it comes down the stretch. But yeah, Steph, the rebounding is interesting because we haven't seen that with Jimmy in the fold, and I was looking at Jimmy's elimination game, if you want to call this an elimination game numbers. He's averaging six rebounds in elimination games. He's averaging almost 5 assists. He's averaging 2 steals. I think there's some room here for some defensive props as well. Let's get to Edey, because then you could bounce off that, Joe, and then I'll come in and wrap it up on why I think this is a good spot for the Warriors. K1, talk to me about Edey and your overall feelings on this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Joe mentioned, the shift in sort of, mindset and rotation for these Grizzlies when Jenkins was ultimately fired a few weeks ago. The first game in that situation, in that breakout role here for Edey over the past 2 or 3 weeks was this game against the Warriors on April 1st. People might have thought that it was an April Fool's joke, seeing Zach Edey out there for 33 minutes. That was an uncommon thing that we were seeing. We would see him start and play 16, 17 minutes. It was a very frustrating thing to not only predict Edey's rebound rates, but just his role on this team in general. Had 16 rebounds in that game. He's gone on to post 16 plus rebound games in 4 of his last 6 games, 13 plus in the last 5 of his last 6 games as well. So when you look at the role that he has, it all comes down to minutes for Edey, right? We know that when he's on the floor, he's going to be a productive rebounder. This also was a great matchup for centers. It's been one of like the first looks that I have on slates is just these big traditional rebounding centers against the Warriors. They've struggled quite a bit over the past month or so against these big time rebounders here, allowing the second most rebounds to opposing centers per game in that span. So great matchup here for Edey. It all comes down to minutes. I do have a little bit of nervousness about the role coming into a playoff game or a play-in game with their ability to say, okay, well, let's just turn away from this. Obviously, they can play Triple J at the 5 if need be. That'd probably be more of a size matchup there if they wanted to match up down to the Warriors from a size perspective. But obviously this is something that the Grizzlies went into the past few weeks looking to seek out and do, right? Play Edey more minutes, get him this role. And I think that it would be sort of strange for them to turn away from it now, especially considering it's been working. He's been playing extremely well, over the last 5 or 6 games, 28 plus minutes, and all of those games dating back to that April 1st matchup against the Warriors. So, I have him projected for 29 minutes here, and that's kind of hedging a little bit because, I do think that if this is a game where he plays these full minutes, I do think a 32-minute projection could be suitable here. But so hedging the situation a bit, 29-minute projection, I am for 12.1 rebounds. And again, great matchup here against a team allowing the second most rebound chances per game over the last 2 months to opposing centers. So great spot here against Edey. And if you do have a little bit more nerves of this number and you want to bet Zach Edey line, first of all, I don't mind laddering here as well because this is a spot where I do think the books are also hedging a touch for a lack of minutes in this rotation. But if it's a spot where you wanted to bet Edey, but also have a little bit of a hedge, I don't mind the Santi Aldama over 9.5 points as well. Again, I have Aldama projected for 28 minutes, and I still haven't projected to go over this number. So I do think there's a world where Edey and Aldama both hit their overs on these numbers, and we obviously have a nice little middle opportunity. But if it's a spot where Edey does see his minutes come down to the low 20s, Aldama would probably be the biggest beneficiary of that. And if that's the case, I do like the over on 9.5 points. But again, like I mentioned, I like it regardless. So I think this is a good time to potentially hedge or even middle player prop, which is not normally a scenario that I look to do, but I think in a spot when you're talking strictly minutes and correlated minutes, I think it's a good chance to find some value there with these guys.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Last time these two teams played, the game was in Memphis. They lost by 9. But the minutes that you laid out, JD, like this guy's a top 10 pick. He's going to play minutes like a top 10 pick. He played 32. He had 16 boards. Santi Aldama had 18 and 6 in 30 minutes.
Like they both could put up the number anyway, honestly.
Yep.
And for my side, I don't mind Edey being on the floor a bunch of minutes because he's a absolute lost dog on defense, especially against the Golden State Warriors. They have no idea what they want to do with him on that side of the floor. I think that's a big worry. And to go back to the spot that you were talking about, JD, with the rest and them unloading to try to get the week off, I agree with you, but I also think the Clippers very well may be the second best team in the West.
Clippers are legit. Like Clippers are going to be live in that series against Denver. I bet over 5.5 games. There's a little bonus fucking bet for you guys out there. But like I think Clippers are live there. Clippers are legit. Clippers are good.
Yeah. So we were talking about it recently in the group chat. We were talking about West power rankings, and I have them ahead of Houston. I have them way ahead of Denver. I'm so not a believer on Denver. Jamal Murray shows up and plays like 2 games, and then we're like, oh, yeah, he's back, and playoff Murray is a lock. It's like, I don't know about that. And when Jokic has to score 30, it's always been bad news for the Nuggets. Always. Yeah. So I'm very down on the vibe in Denver and overall how they're going to match up with the Clippers. They've been mispriced all year long. They've been the second best odds to win the West all year long until like last week. So it's the Jokic effect. I get it. But overall, I would say that's more of an indictment of how good the Clippers are, that the Warriors tried to unload it and couldn't get it done, even so, with trying to get the week off. This Memphis Grizzlies team is not that. Honestly, fellas, I'm not sure they have a quality win in the last 3 months. They went to the Pistons and got a W. I will give them that one. But if you go through their game log and what they've been doing, and I guess that's partly why Taylor Jenkins packed up his house and is no longer in Memphis. But the wins are Dallas, Charlotte, at Detroit. That was last week. April 5th against the Pistons in Detroit. Miami, 110-108. I'm so down on Miami. I think that whole situation is stale.
Miami's
Free Spoelstra. Send him to San Antonio. I would love to see that. The win prior, Utah, Miami again. Utah, Phoenix, New Orleans, Dallas, Phoenix, Orlando by a point on the road in February. So if you watch this team, how they go about their business, Isola is a new coach trying to lock in a new system, a new culture, a new philosophy. He's doing all this on the fly. And if Ja Morant has a bad variant shooting game, which he very well could, because we know how tough it is to score on the Warriors in the paint. Ja also, I believe, gets going from outside when he believes he can get going and get to the paint. I think it's just a bad matchup for a team that's already lost to this team by 9 points recently. Jalen Wells not in the fold. Edey's going to get smoked on defense. And I just trust Butler, Curry, Dre, and the rest of the guys to really get going. If you want to get spicy, you could play leading after every quarter. I saw plus 140. Halftime, full-time is minus 150. I don't love that as much. I might as well lay the 7 points, which is what I'm doing. I just think for a team that has limped into the play-in with Ja playing out of his mind, I think if they can shut off that Ja Morant water, they're not going to be able to score enough to keep up with the Warriors offensively, and just a must-win, win and get in, and then really compete. This is why Jimmy Butler's in the fold. I like this spot for the Warriors. I'll lay the points. And then just to wrap it up really quick, and I'll kick it to UK1. I think it's absolutely out of the question, as I mentioned, for a team that's had one road win against the West top six all year long. They're 0-2 at the Chase Center this year. For them to go into essentially a playoff atmosphere, get a W, even though they have the rest advantage, it's not a back-to-back situation. We'll see how healthy Jimmy and those guys are with a thigh contusion, but they're not even on the injury report as of tonight, as we record this Monday night. Not questionable, not probable. They're not even on the report. They'll be ready to go. I trust Jimmy to get ready to go in a one-game situation with a thigh bruise. I don't think there's any situation where they lose this game. They might not cover, but I think Golden State gets this W at home. And then when we talk about the Knicks, I much rather the Knicks play the Milwaukee Bucks. That didn't happen. For as much talk as I've heard about the Pistons and how tough they are, and you don't want to play those guys, game one number open 7, and the Pistons haven't taken any money. Where are all the Pistons people that are supposed to move this number that are as scared as they're saying out loud and in public and in the microphones, but in the market, the number's not moving? That feels like a big number to me, but the only direction I've seen it move is in the Knicks' favor. As a matter of fact, juice to minus 115, minus 117, minus 7 points at home for the Knicks. So they've cleaned up the first quarter where they struggled a ton this year. They were the second worst first quarter team ATS in the NBA. I believe that they even finished second to last or last. To close the year, 12 straight games, they won the first quarter straight up. They were a lot better down the stretch ATS in the first quarter. I think they're going to get off to a good start. Dellera, you catch the Knicks in bad spots on no rest with the rest disadvantage. They were so bad year long. So bad. If you were catching the Knicks on a back-to-back, you had a really good chance to hang and compete no matter the situation or how bad of a team, especially early on in the first quarter. They're going to have a full week off. They're going to have everybody in the fold. I talked about this with Kyle last time we were on. I believe Tibbs has a few more guys he trusts that he could put in the rotation now as well, which is interesting. I think he trusts Shamet now. Landry's been playing really well. He's going to get some minutes. I think DeLon Wright earned some minutes. Deuce, all those guys are going to be healthy. Cam Payne really struggled down the stretch, but I still think if they have to go that deep, he'll get some minutes as well. I think you're going to get a more balanced, just overall better team, and a rested team that will have time to game plan for Cade Cunningham. I don't think there's any chance the Knicks lose game one at home on a Saturday night or early evening at Madison Square Garden. It'll be nice and raucous, and then you're going to tell me they're going to play a young Detroit team in their first playoff game. I just don't see them going into the Garden and getting the W. So I have no problem laying the 20 extra cents at minus 130 for the Warriors-Knicks moneyline parlay. K1, break the tie because I'm going to make you give me a lean at the very least on this game and how you feel it shakes.
We talking the Grizzlies game or the Pistons?
We're talking Memphis. We're talking Memphis and Memphis and the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, both of you guys made great points, and you mentioned it earlier. Like, Joe had a great handicap, and although you didn't necessarily agree with all of it, I think you also had a great breakdown. I think the big thing for me is the injuries. For me, I came in looking at this line. I did think that 7 seemed like quite a wide number, but that sort of just kind of tells me that these guys are going to be just fine from a health perspective. I think, if anything, the Curry injury would be the one that I would worry about lingering most, but the fact that he looked as good as he did on Sunday in that game against the Clippers sort of tells me he's okay there. Obviously, we saw Jimmy Butler play 43 minutes in the overtime game. Draymond also got banged up in that game as well. He went to the locker room. He came back. He made a nice little comment saying that we're not senior citizens, so they're going to be good to go. So I do think this team's going to be fully healthy, ready to go. So I'm also going to back the Warriors here. I can definitely agree that 7 might be a number that seems a bit wide here, but I do think it's just such a good matchup for the Warriors. And although I am on Zach Edey, I do think that him being in this team in this team's rotation in such a significant way could also hurt them defensively and obviously benefit the Warriors on the offensive side of the ball. But then again, when it gets kind of in these pace up spots here, I think it's going to be easier for this Grizzlies team to kind of catch the Warriors outside of their comfort zone at times. So I'm going to say the Warriors win this one, but I do agree that the 7 might be a bit of a wide number here.
We mentioned at the top of the show that we're coming to you from our Tommy John home studios, and that's because great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. I'm telling you guthis Tommy John merch is no joke. I'm wearing the draws right now. I wear them every day. I actually bought some additional after they sent me some pairs. It's all comfortable. It's very good stuff. The pajamas are good. The shirts are good. Go check out some Tommy John stuff if you have not already. Remember, when you're truly comfortable, you do everything better, and that includes betting. So if you love the Buckets podcast, if you love this crew, you'll love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/buckets. That's 25% off at TommyJohn.com/buckets. Now, before we wrap up, we've got a special treat for you. It's a guide to betting the play-in games from Matt Moore and Brandon Anderson. I'm sure BA is going to talk about Lou Dort at some point as well.
Hey, thanks, Sean. I'm here with Brandon Anderson, NBA futures analyst. He's got his usual set of rules, guides, thresholds, trends for the play-in tournament. Brandon, what do you got?
So we only have 4 years of data. So 24 games of the play-in, by definition, a small sample. We'll see how much this stuff matters, but it's enough to, draw some trends early on. So rule number 1, home court definitely matters here. The home team in play-in games, all rounds, 17-7 straight up. So 71% in the play-in. They were 5-1 at home last year. If you go just the first set of the play-in game, so not the final elimination game for the 8th seed, home team 12-4, 75%. So even a little bit better in these early games. We don't necessarily think about it. I think usually it's like, oh, look at these coin flip games. Like, oh, both teams are really good. But home team just winning straight up has been pretty strong. Does that surprise you at all?
No, because the 7th seed actually has historically it's like that's the bubble team. Like they're definitively better. And then that 8th seed, there's oftentimes kind of like they could have, but no. And so and even this year, you see that like Grizzlies, by the end of the year, not hanging with Warriors, Clippers, Wolves, Nuggets.
Yeah. All right. Rules 2 and 3, I'm going to do together because they're kind of the same, but different. Rule number 2, the team entering the play-in as the 7th seed, they're going to qualify. They're going to make the real playoff. It just might not be easy. So 7 seeds in the home opener are 6-2, 75%. That's right as we just set expectation for the home team. However, that's 6 wins by 1 point, 3, 5, 7, and 1 in overtime. They only have 1 comfortable win in there, 1 win by 8 points or more. So these have not been easy games, even by the team that we agree is the best team. They're the 7th seed after all. But all 8 teams that started as the 7 did go on to make the playoffs. 2 of them needed the elimination game. They won by 7, they won by 11 there. It's at home. So great news for the Warriors. Great news for the Magic. They should be in. Rule number 3, the team entering as the 10 seed is basically dead on arrival. The 10 seed has not made the playoffs. They have not done it. They are 0-8. They are 2-8 straight up. In 2023, they did both actually win in the first game, but then they lost after that. And here's the real kicker to me, and this is very bettable. 8 losses from these teams that are the 10 seeds by an average of 15 points a game. All but one of the losses have been by double digits. So, unless you like one of these teams, RIP to the Mavs, RIP to the Heat. The Heat are a +1 right now. If you like this trend, you could get a nice juicy line for your Wednesday night bets when we get there. Mavs and Heat look DOA according to this trend.
Those are great numbers. I especially love that. Like, the ideal for me would be that one of these, like the Mavs beat the Kings and then go up against the Grizzlies or the Warriors. That would be, especially Warriors. Oh, alt lanes all day, baby.
I'm glad you asked. Let's go right into rule number 4. So what about the final elimination game? The game to get into the 8 seed. We're talking Friday night now. All right. Home team is 5-3. Not necessarily as good as you think. 63%, again, tiny sample, but not the number that compared to before. However, pay attention to the seed differential here. If it goes chalk, the Friday game is 8 versus 9. The 8 loses to 7 on the road, then they get to host. The 9 wins at home, now they're on the road. If it's 8-9, the favorite home team is only 2-3 straight up. So now we have a true coin flip situation that has actually not gone their way. Your situation you described, all right, the Mavs upset the Kings, but now they're going to play the Warriors. Anytime we have a game with more than a 1 seed difference, so just not 8 versus 9. So either the favorite 7 lost or the underdog 10 won. Anything like that, the favorites 3-0, all wins by 7 or more points, average margin of victory 14.3. So you are right. Your instincts are dead on. If we get some wonky situation, you can probably make alternate plans Friday night because we're probably going to get a blowout and the better team does usually move on there. Does that surprise you at all?
No, it's not even like a little bit. There's a reason why everyone's kind of like, why do we do this again? I like the play-in, but I have to admit, like, yeah, I don't know if I need the 10 in. We may not need the 10 seed in. That's just not a thing we might need.
Yeah, agreed. All right, last one, rule number 5. Think long and hard about betting the play-in winners. So whoever advances, the new 7 and 8s, the official 7 and 8s in the actual playoffs, think about betting them outright in game 1. Not a strong amount of data here. We got 8 games. The winning 7 and 8 seeds are 2-6 straight up in game 1 against top 2 seeds. 2-6 is not great. I don't have the money line number for you, but I can almost guarantee you 2-6 as the big road long dogs that didn't even barely make the playoffs. You're winning money there. And I bet this last year. I bet the Pelicans in Oklahoma City in game 1. I know if you remember that game, I was at a baseball game watching the Kane County Cougars for a 50th birthday party. Kept checking the score. The Pelicans led. They lost by 2. There was like a heartbreak at the end. Oklahoma City came back, barely got it. And then they swept them right out the door and crushed them the rest of the time. But I felt good about the bet because that was the one game the Pels were even close on. And we're almost at 3-5 on the stat there. So if there is a team you like that makes it out of the play-in, cough, Warriors, cough, seems like the team this year. If you like them, be willing to bet immediately. Maybe there's a rust situation to getting that week off where the team is actually, we just played, we're still in a rhythm, we're hot, we're feeling good. It's not a ton of data. This is the smallest of the samples. But if you liked a team in the play-in, I think you like them, you bet them game 1. If you liked the Warriors before, you should like them now. You should bet them game 1. And you should invest in futures now before they advance out of the play-in because books have to factor in the chance that they drop to Oklahoma City or out. So if you like the Warriors, bet now. Don't wait later. History says they're going to make the bracket, and history says they have a better chance than you would think going in.
All right. That's Brandon Anderson with some helpful and useful and actionable trends for the play-in tournament. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll see you guys again next time.
Thanks, guys. That'll do it for us for the Tuesday play-in slate. You made it. We're here. It's the playoffs. To recap, K1, Kyle Murray, Zach Edey, over 10.5, rebounds, plus 105. Franz, Wagner, over 36.5 PRA. JD Joe Dellera is also on Edie, over 10.5 boards. Ja Morant, over 33.5 points plus dimes. Curry, over 10.5 rebounds plus assists. Little lay here for you from JD. Magic money line, Paolo and Franz, 20-plus points, minus 109. I'm going to lay it with the Warriors, -7, minus 110, and then a little parlay. Show some patience. Warriors, Knicks, money line, parlay, minus 130. For JD Joe Dellera, for K1 Kyle Murray, I am your host, Sean Little. Subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Download the app if you somehow haven't done that already. There's tons of stuff coming out for baseball, the NBA playoffs. We are going to be working our ass off for you to try to get you some plays and some easy money throughout this playoffs. JD's already throwing in extra plays over 5.5 games in Denver. Clippers, I also took over 5.5 games in Bucks Pacers. Minus 140 I saw in the market is where I booked it. It was at FanDuel. I really like that spot. But we're going to be putting out tons and tons of stuff. Matt Moore and Brandon Anderson just dropped a full season recap lead into the playoffs pod. Go check that out ASAP. I mean, there's tons of stuff coming. Stay locked as always. For JD, for K1, I am Sean Little. Until next time, which is tomorrow, let's get buckets, baby.